He's a master Steinologist. But you know, the big thing about our school is that a lot of people talk to you about Steins. But this fellow shares his knowledge. He informs you about Steins. And I don't know anybody that's more generous with information. I don't know anybody that's helped promote Steins any more than this fellow. And of course, you all know it's Ron Fox, who's talking today about Saeltzer Stein.
Good morning. First, I have to apologize. There won't be too much profanity this morning because Dave used a quota up there yesterday. But he's here in case I need him. I also have to warn you that I was the guy with the dancing dot yesterday. So I challenged him to get me back. So we'll see if he's brave enough or not. Before I start, I have to spend about 2 or 3 minutes talking about something that's kind of dear to me. Over the years, I've been involved in SCI since 1974. And I've seen a lot of collectors come, and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of collectors pass away. My first convention was in New York. At that time, I was 24 years old. I had hair halfway down my back. And when I came to the convention, to say the least, I didn't look like I fit in. Some of the old guard felt the same way. So, maybe some of them do. But the first day, at the end of the first day, I felt like, I really should go home. This isn't my social gathering. And I ran into Mike Wold, and he took me under his wing. He accepted me, introduced me to all the people that were active and knowledgeable at the time. And he watched over me the entire convention. We became instant friends, and up until him passing, we spent hours and hours on the telephone. Most of you that have been collecting a while have to know how much information he's imparted to you. And for those of you that don't know of him or just know him by name, a lot of information that will come to you will be coming to you because of his hard work and efforts. He was a real Stein lover. He would talk to anybody. He watched out for the beginning novice, and he challenged the knowledgeable to go further and deeper. So when I was very sick in the late 70s, I was bedridden for about 6 months. Some things that most people don't know about Mike Wold. He wanted to become a country western singer. And he came to my house every day and sang to me, played the guitar and sang to me. He was a real true friend, and he'll be sorely missed. And those of you that do know him know how much time and effort he put into the hobby. He loved Stein collecting, he loved Steins, and he loved Stein people. So. Okay, what I'd like to do is turn the projector on. Do I have the lights back here?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the firm that I'm talking about is August Saeltzer. It's a very small firm in the town of Eisenach. To start my little lecture, I'd like to tell you how I came about this. About 18 years ago, I came across a decorated stoneware Stein that really appealed to me. And, you know, I vacillated a bit and I didn't buy it, and I always regretted it. I was at Les Paul's house about 12, 13 years ago, and another collector came to the meeting, and he had a stoneware Stein decorated the same way. I didn't know the name of the factory at that time, but I recognized it was the same factory, and it really appealed to me. The gentleman that had it didn't really want to sell it. He was just looking for some information about it, which at that time nobody could give him. About a year later, I found one that was for sale at a show out in San Francisco, and I bought it, and I was off and running. I knew what I had as far as the traits and all. Didn't know the name of the maker, and it took a couple of years until I was able to get the information that I needed. August Saeltzer, his name was Wilhelm August Saeltzer. He was born in 1820, and he was born in the town of Eisenach. The firm that he established after apprenticing, he apprenticeshiped in the potter's trade for about 10 years. And in 1850, he put in for permission to make pottery in the town of Eisenach. And he very quickly after that was given permission, and he established his firm in the address of 46 Frauenberg in the town of Eisenach. August Saeltzer was more of a decorating firm. They had a earthenware kiln, and this is what they initially were making. This whole series of Grecian vases and urns, you gotta realize when he started manufacture was during the Historicismus period, where all the old world styles and traits of the Renaissance were being remade in all different kinds of wares. At this time, you know, that they were copying the stoneware, the faience, and the forms and the styles of an earlier period. And this is what you have here. Before the wall came down in the east, I went into the town of Eisenach, and I visited there, and we came across a guy that was an antique dealer, and he only spoke either German or Russian, and luckily my friend was able to speak both languages. And we asked him if there were any kind of information in the town about Saeltzer. He told me that he had some catalogs. I was hoping when he said it that it was of the stoneware, but I was very pleased at what he gave me, and these are the samples of what he gave me. Here you can see that you got to realize this is in 1858, and if you look at the values of what these items were costing, I think some of the most expensive ones are 25, 29 marks. And when you think in 1858, there was a tremendous amount of money, and the reason it was so expensive is that there was a lot of handwork on it. All right, more of interest to Stein collectors is their second line that was put in around 1870 was a whole series of Croisons. Like I said, during the Historicismus period or the New Revival, the wares from the Renaissance in the 16th, 17th century, there was a resurgence in awareness. So a lot of the makers in all mediums, whether it be glass, stoneware, earthenware, they were making things of the earlier period, and that's what you have here. The catalog, everything has a catalog number, and when we get to the end of a few slides, you're going to see that every single one of these pieces, it tells you the size, what it cost you at the time, and where the original Croison tankard was that they used as a model and inspiration to make their copies. Wow. Now, these were earthenware and not stoneware, but the same kind of enameling that's on this is the kind of enameling that you'll find on the stoneware steins that we'll talk further about.
Hey, Ron?
Yes.
Are those relief like the other Croisons, or is that all flat?
No, they are raised. There's the belly bands, and if you have apostles or figures on it, they are raised. They were cast molded and not thrown. So if you open the lid and look on the inside, wherever there's a relief section on the outside, you'll find that it's recessed on the inside, which shows you that it came out of a 3 or 4 part slip casted mold. But the enameling that's on it is very close to the kind of enameling that you'll find on a Croison. Now, not to be confused with some other copies where the enamel flaked and peeled and didn't hold up very well. Even though these are rare sizes and shapes that you would find in the original, so I guess they felt that it was, the one on the right is more of a rare in style than it would be a Croisen. The one on the bottom left and the top left are both would be considered Annenberg copies and not Croisens. So you can see they were making a lot of different things from the 17th century period. That's what they were copying. The one on the bottom right would be a Freiberg. So there was a variety of Saxon copies that they made also. Here you can see the size, the values, and again, they were quite expensive for the time. And also, if you look on the left-hand side, it tells you original private collection, original National Museum in Munich, original National Museum Munich. So you could look up each one of these, some of them you can see are out of private collections, but even today you could find the original that they used for inspiration and see that it's exactly what they made. So they were quite expensive for the time. As I was saying, I went to Les Paul's house years ago, and there was a gentleman that was there with a Stein he wanted to know something about. This is the piece, and this is the piece that really got me fired up to get out there and try to find and put a collection together of this type of Stein. This is a copy of one of the marks. This is the most common mark that you're going to find. It's an intertwined A&S, and you occasionally will find other letters beneath it or around it. The AS is for August Saeltzer, and this is, again, like I say, it's the most common mark. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not marked, or a lot of them just have kind of artist letters or inscriptions. But the one thing, by the time I'm done with the talk, you're going to see that it has a real distinct look and style to it. And once you've seen one and you'll be able to label it, you know that it's a Saeltzer, you'll be able to recognize it again. I also have some examples up on the table that you can come up later and look at. I've got the catalogs that I showed you up here you can also see. Again, another Stein with an AS. The preceding slide had an F beneath the AS. This has an N beneath the AS. Now, August Saeltzer actually died in 1880 from a heart attack, and right around that time period, another gentleman by the name of Louis Martini came and took over the factory. Kind of interesting that Louis Martini, what he did, he was actually an embosser and mold maker in Meissen. So he came with a lot of experience and brought with him a lot of the training and knowledge of enameling, because at Meissen, even though it was porcelain, your decoration that you find is enameling on porcelain. And I think that his expertise in that medium allowed him to really be very prolific with the enameling that's on the stoneware. Now, when in 1870, the first shipment of blanks, you have to understand that they had an earthenware kiln. And as I showed you the catalogs preceding the stoneware Steins, the Grecian vases were earthenware that they made and decorated. The Croisens were earthenware and they decorated them. They made the bodies and they decorated them. But they found from experience that trying to simultaneously run an earthenware kiln and a stoneware kiln was quite costly. So they chose not to do that and found that it would be more economical to just buy the blanks. And that was not unusual. HR made very few of their Steins. They actually bought the blanks from other people, other manufacturers, and they just were decorating for them also. So they weren't the first one to come up with this. Now, when they first took their first order in 1870, the Regensburg factory was not in existence at that time. So their initial orders, they got their blank stoneware bodies from the town of Herbrandshausen. Here, it's very difficult to see, and I'm going to take this pointer out. I'm sure I'm going to have some other pointers up here with me. There it is. We were looking for you. Right here is the Merkel Black and Wick impressed mark. It's very difficult to see because it's real light impression, but this is the only Stein that I have that I can show that definitely came from the Hergrenzhausen area as far as having a mark on the stoneware. I have quite a few other pieces that I can show you out of my collection that I'm positive, because they're marked, came from the Thien factory, Fritz Thien from Regensburg. So initially in 1870, they couldn't get anything close by because Regensburg wasn't making stoneware, so they bought the bodies from Hergrenzhausen. And then when Regensburg was in full production, they bought their blanks from them. And there was, they worked in conjunction with the Regensburg factory, Fritz Thien. And even in the Fritz Thien catalog, you will find examples of decorated Saeltzer pieces that Fritz Thien was actually selling. So, but then when Fritz Thien went out of business, they were only in business for about 14, 15 years, they had to revert back to buying the bodies from Hergrenzhausen. So, you know, the timeline is they got the bodies from Hergrenzhausen first, then from Regensburg. Regensburg went out of business, and they went back to getting the bodies from Hergrenzhausen. This piece here, which is from Merkel Black and Wick, wouldn't have been from the early period of Hergrenzhausen, it would have been from the later period. Like I said, when I first started, I was able to know what to look for to get these Steins, but I wasn't able to label them as manufacturer. And I probably at one point had at least a dozen or more of these, but I couldn't tell you who made them. Then I stumbled on this Stein, which was very nice of the artist to label it for me. I had pieces that would walk with the script AS, but I didn't know what it stood for. So when I found A. Saeltzer, there's the AS, and they were nice enough to tell me the town. So it allowed me to go through some research books, and I then was able to find the marks and add the name. I knew where to go. I could at least call my Steins by their correct classification, and I was able to go to the town of Eisenach and really dig in and do some studying. Their local museum there doesn't have much, but they had about 15, 18 pieces. And I also found out that in 1981, the curator of the Meissen Museum had done a whole little catalog on Saeltzer, and all the information that was available to them was in it, lots of photographs, and Lottie Lopez was nice enough to translate the pertinent information for me, so it was a good basis for me to start to learn more about the factory. The one on the left is actually the Stein preceding here with the mark that said Eisenach. Now, the two of these are pretty much the same, but when you look at the way it's dressed up, you see that even though they're very similar in decoration, you've got a verse which is similar, but the surrounding floral work is almost identical. But then you look at the belly bands, and they really look like two different Steins. So even though when I get two Steins that basically have the same subject matter, the way they were dressed up and embellished and the pewter lids put on it, they really look like totally different Steins on the shelf. So I don't mind duplication. What I'm going to go through right now is the most common type of Saeltzer Stein is having a frontal verse with floral scenes or geometric patterns or stylized florals on the sides. And that's the most common type of Stein that you'll find from Saeltzer. They were real big on sayings. I have two of these, and they have continuing verses, but yet the bodies and the side florals are exactly the same. Here you see the geometric patterns, sort of Middle Eastern style, which was very popular at this time. You've got the verse in the front and you've got the mosaic pattern on the side, which you do see a lot of. Another verse piece with florals. This is a little bit more delicately painted than the other verses. Again, we have another one. And the color combination is what I really want to as the slides come up, you'll see that the use of maroon a special shade of green and cobalt are reused over and over. And the salt clay stoneware body is very, very light gray. It's not dark. There's no cobalt decoration on it. And makes a real good ground for the enamel. You know, the enameling color is mixed on this gray. It's a real good palette. I've probably got 20 different steins that have verse scenes on them. Again, mosaic pattern on the side. Now, as far as artists are concerned, there probably was 20 or 30 different artists that worked for Saeltzer. The only one that I can identify by name is Louis Rembach, because he was nice enough to sign one of the steins with his name filled out. So when you find the steins with the script LR, we know it's Louis Rembach. There was another artist that only put the letter L, one single L on the bottom of the stein. And one of his traits was that in conjunction with all the artwork that he had on the piece, he always used a white, thick enamel. As you see on this piece that has the prosen on it. The leaves have a very thick enamel, much more raised and prominent than the other enamel colors. And every piece that I have in my collection that has white enamel like that has the L on it. I don't know who he is, but I can identify all of his pieces in my collection. That's the fun about research. You know, you don't get it all at once. It's a continual study. So that's why everybody out here that has Saeltzer has to sell them to me, because it's my research project. I don't know if anybody's going to buy that. This is just a neat piece. It's a normal verse, but it's really nice that you have the 1873 date up in the HR. Obviously, the HR was probably the individual the stein was made for, so it's really personalized. And as I say, they took shipment of their first bodies in 1870, and so this is in the very early period, which allows me to study this body and know that this was a Herb Renshausen body. And then I can make comparisons to other pieces that I have, which help me date those. The whole thing when you're collecting a specific factory, it's, you know, the steins themselves teach you by comparison one to another.
Nice, beautiful.
The unusual trait here, with the 1 liter on the front of the stein, the Regensburg factory did that, and the Herb Renshausen factory would not have. So that blank, I'm sure, was a Fritz Stein body rather than a Herb Renshausen body. These are both fairly identical in form, shape, and color. The only difference is it's a continuing verse. Now I got these two pieces probably 10 years apart. Again, you've got a Saxon crest. One's a little bit bigger than the other, but something made for the East market. And now I'm going to get into the first series of pieces were verses. Now I'm going to get into scenics. And even though this piece is not a great example of their work, it's just done in a grayish brown color as we go through. The neat thing about this is the workmanship is actually signed to the artist, which is kind of unusual in the artwork rather than the bottom of the piece. These are a whole series of smaller half-liter, 3/10 liter size pieces. And as you can see, pretty much they just have these dark brown belly bands. This also piece, like I said before, with the white enamel. This is Bacchus. And all that white enamel, which are the stein upside down, it's got the single L on it. They did a whole series of Defragor type scenes where you have the indoor taverns, and they were taken from Defragor paintings. I probably have 4 or 5 like that, and each one of the bodies are exactly the same. And what's kind of interesting, I've got 3 of them that I got at different times, but the lids are identical, and they have the same hinge skirts one another. So they came out of the same period, the same run, and it was nice to get them in different places. Again, you see that it has the half-liter mark stamped in the front top. Again, that's not something that would have been done on a Herb Renshausen body. Now, like I said before, I showed you the first verse piece that actually was signed August Saeltzer at the Meisenach, and then I showed you there was two Steins that were pretty similar. I've got this same scene on 3 different pieces. I think I have to, I'll come back to it later. I'll show you the companion piece to this, and if all my pieces were out on the shelf and you came in and looked at my collection, you really wouldn't notice that it was the same subject matter because it was done so different. The colors were different, the body, shape, size, the belly bands, the way they embellished it. It was so differently done that they look like 2 entirely different Steins. Occasionally they like to put these glass prism lids in the top. You'll see that the one Stein that I have up here also has it. One other trait that I like about the factory is they did fantastic pewter. Not only were the lids of great quality, heavy gauge, nice relief, dressed up well, but the way they put their straps on and their strap supports. I don't have any good slides to show you from here, but when you come up and look at the Steins I have on the table, you'll see that the pewter work was dressed up real well. And the strap support sometimes has grooves and cuts and flips to it that you don't find on an average Stein. So the pewter smith was absolutely phenomenal. Another trait about this factory is probably 50% of the time the pewter lids, and it's kind of funny, over the last 20 years, one of my side collections was I collected any Stein that had a copper or brass inlaid lid. And more than half of the time, Saeltzer will have the copper or brass inlaid lids, which I really like. So now, maybe a third of the time, you find Saeltzer without lids. So quite a few of my copper inlaid lids for my glass Steins have been ripped off and put on the Saeltzers because it was appropriate of what they would have had on if they had lidded pieces. So I guess I was collecting them in preparation for fixing up the ones that they didn't make with lids. This is one of my favorite Steins. I got this from Les Paul probably 8 or 10 years ago, and the full palette of colors is just great, and the artwork is as nice as it looks up there. If I put it in your hands, it's just a fantastic Stein. This one here is really interesting. It's probably one of the better painted ones, and I made a deal with one of the collectors for this piece, and I didn't realize until I had it for quite some time. I knew there was an inscription on the lid, but I never read it. And one day I was looking at it, and what it was is it was given to August Saeltzer's wife. It's the Frau Saeltzer. And now this is only conjecture, but it's my opinion. I really believe that the seated man was August Saeltzer, because if they were going to go to the trouble to give his wife something, I would think that it would be appropriate that the scene would be meaningful to her also. And being it's so well painted, I haven't been able to find any photographs to see exactly what he looks like, but I have the feeling that he probably looked like that. Excuse me? Maybe. They did those things then too.
Yeah. Many times.
Okay, here's the other piece that I was talking about, and maybe I have it behind. No, I don't have it behind. Okay, I'll have the 2 pieces that are the same subject matter later on. I got this piece from Les Whittam, probably, I think I got it at the Deerfield Convention. So that was 89, so I've got this one quite a while. And I just recently got a Stein, a big bulbous Stein, and found out what the scene is all about. One of the subject matters that you'll see more than anything else is in the town of Eisenach was the Wartburg Castle. And they used the Wartburg subject matter or anything that was connected to Wartburg over and over. And after getting this big bulbous piece, which is all about Thornburg, the front scene is the courtyard scene of the castle. The top neck has the actual castle scene on that. And then you have two side scenes. And one of the side scenes is this blacksmith, but it was the blacksmith that worked in the castle. So I was able to make more sense of this scene that's on the Stein. It's, again, connected with Thornburg. Some of the pieces that I really like is that it's just in one color, either whether it be sepia, brown, or black. And this, again, is so finely painted. Here's Gambrinus Rex. Now, this is a Fritz Stein body. It has, one of the ways of telling the difference between Hergrenzhausen and Fritz Stein is if there's a mold number impressed into the bottom, that's not what Hergrenzhausen factories did, it was what Fritz Stein did. So I'm able to tell a difference by that also. And if you look at the base, you'll see it's like a four-leaf clover relief band without color. And that was more typical of what Fritz Stein would have done versus a Hergrenzhausen body. Again, you see the white enamel. You turn this Stein upside down, it'll have the L, the letter L on it. The same thing with this. You've got the white foam coming out of the big beer pitcher and the two beer glasses, and this also has the L on the bottom of it. This piece is really interesting. The top and bottom belly bands have a beaded enamel in that triangular decoration. And if you just look at the background of the landscape scene is a very sheer china paint kind of material. And the two figures is a really thick enamel. You can feel it, it's really pronounced. And in reality, this is an anti-Semitic Stein. Back in the 18th century and early 19th century, you see those big black stove hats. They would make them wear that so you were able to tell who they were. It's kind of an interesting piece, and it's very well done. Because Munich wasn't that far away, the Munich market was very vital to what they were selling. You'll find this is made for the Oktoberfest, and the side scenes are also dwarfs holding the big Oktoberfest pretzel. You see the HB, and you can see the slides backwards, but the HB Stein that the dwarf is drinking from. And again, you've got the white enamel on it, and it's got the letter L. This piece also is for the Munich area, showing for the Oktoberfest, and it's an Oktoberfest woman coming to the table with the big Mass, the big 1-liter tankards of beer. Again, the small half-liter size with distinguishing dark brown, maroonish belly bands. This also, you'll find white enamel on it, and it also has the letter L. A real cute piece with the dwarfs drinking around the barrel. Again, some more dwarfs. Instead of drinking beer this time, they're playing around with the champagne bottle. Again, that typical size, shaped body with the brown belly bands. This is kind of an unusual piece. It's a Fritz Stein body and probably sold by them and decorated from Saeltzer. There's a flash down the center of it, but it's a castle that I can't make out. It's not the Wartburg castle. It's kind of unusual to find a different one. Now, most of the ones I'm going to go through now are all real tall 1-liter plus sizes. The two 1-liters that I have up here on each side of the Focal are the same shape and size as these. These are my favorite. You'll see it's almost an hourglass shape. It kind of tapers in the middle and flares both at the top and the bottom. This is my favorite size and decoration. This piece has a massive copper inlaid lid of a crest of a man riding a knight riding a horse. Really well done piece. Again, the dwarfs, again, very well done. These are the pieces that when you look at them, you can really see that the talent of the artists. You see this guy, he's had a little bit too much to drink, and there's monkeys and all kinds of things around him being tormented. Looks like he's going through the DTs. Speaking with Andre the other day, he told me that this Adam and Eve subject matter also is connected with the Wartburg Castle. So they did a lot of subject matter that was connected there. They really glorified that castle, and it was something they were quite proud of. This is my favorite piece. This is Martin Luther, and the workmanship on this is as fine as any painting. Again, if I put it in your hands, you'd be astounded at how well it's done. I mean, the belly bands, the quality of the artwork, how close it came to what he really looked like. And again, this has a real nice, massive lid with a copper inlay. It's quite a piece. And again, Martin Luther was connected with Wartburg, and that's where he translated the Bible from Greek to German. It was interesting. I believe that Martin Luther spent a lot of time at Wartburg in hiding, and was shocked to find out he actually spent a little less than a year there, but he left his mark. This was the very first Stein that I bought, back when I knew I wanted to find them, and this was one at a show through Les Paul years ago in Hillsborough. And again, it's that big 1 liter plus size and that slight hourglass shape, but decorated from handle to handle. Now here's the same scene, and you'll see that it doesn't look much like it. You'll see that the colors change, that even though it's the same scene, a different artist did it. So a different rendition, so as far as I'm concerned, it's a different style. Here's a whole series of pieces that show Wartburg on them. They come in all different shapes and sizes. The belly bands. This one I really like. It's tough to see, but above the peak of the one turret is the Wartburg shield in the wreath. And they're just like on the Metlock plaques. It's different views of the castle, so when you see it from a different direction, the actual castle looks a little bit different. So you get a different view of the Wartburg. Another view of the Wartburg. Another trait on a lot of them is that triangular diamond belly band to the base. That's a real telltale sign when you see that no other factory actually used that kind of a decoration. Now, they didn't use it on everything, but they used it quite a bit. As you see again here on this one. This one's a real tiny piece. It's probably smaller than a quarter liter. This is an interesting Stein. I'm very proud of this. If anybody's been to the Student Prince restaurant, there's quite a Stein collection there in Springfield, Massachusetts. And for many, many years, I was good friends with Rupert, who owned and operated that restaurant for somewhere from in the late 50s, early 60s, until he passed away a couple of years ago. And he never parted with anything. And he had Steins in his restaurant that people offered him crazy amounts of money if he would sell it, and he was never interested. And one day, I knew he had this piece, and this is about 4 years ago, and I went in there quite a bit. I had a lot of people come in and have dinners there because the food was great. And I said, Rupert, I gotta have that Stein. And I was kind of half kidding around because I knew he never parted with anything. And he went and got the chair, got up on it, took this down and handed it to me. And it means quite a bit to me. This is the other scene of it. And basically the subject matter, the first scene shows the sick man in bed and upstairs, and there's his doctor downstairs. I think there's something to be learned from that, but I'm not sure what it is. He's supposed to be making the house call, so. But who is he taking care of? As you can see, this is the very same Stein, and you see the poor sick man with the bandage on his head giving himself the medicine while the doctor's downstairs getting his medicine. The one on the left, I just recently got from the Schwartz auction. Mike was real pleased, Mike Wolves. I couldn't make it there, and he was real pleased to represent me and bring that home to me. So, the one on the right is, again, that 1 liter plus size, and the one on the left is almost a 3 liter, even though it doesn't look like it. It's very wide. But again, same subject matter. The one on the right is done all in black tones. The one on the left is multicolored. And you see how different they really look. Here's another Adam and Eve piece. And if you can see both sides, you'll see that it shows what the woman will be compared to after 10 years of marriage, 20 years of marriage. And on the left side, and they have animals that they call them. So it's quite a comical piece. Again, here's the one I kept saying I was going to show you, and finally we got to it. The same exact subject matter of kind of a student and a pottery or salesman. He's got his wares in a big basket on his back, but yet they really don't look a whole lot alike. So duplication is good. This is the piece that I was referring to before that helped me know that the blacksmith scene had something to do with Wartburg. Even though the front scene is in the courtyard of the castle, and even though it's not real clear on the neck, it's the shield, the Wartburg shield that represents the castle, and then the right scene would be the blacksmith that was on the Stein, so it definitely has something to do with the Wartburg castle. These are some of the unusual shapes that they made besides just tankards. You see here a ring crew with a bearded spout, not very common. Here a big pouring pitcher with a floral decoration, and Andre actually brought that back, got that for me out of Leipzig a few years ago. Here is a piece that's definitely from the Fritz Stein factory. It's molded, and the shape and form is something that would not have come out of Hergrenzhausen. It also has an impressive number on the bottom of it, and you'll see a lot of relief decoration in the belly bands, even besides the crest that's on the front of it. This piece is just so clean and crisp. It's really a fantastic piece. Again, another piece that's from the Wartburg Castle. This piece, I was in London, and there was a secondary sale at Christie's, and I had nothing to do on a Sunday, so I went to view a bunch of secondary stuff. There was a cleanup sale for the things that were not sold or had damage, and they had this in it. And I bought it for $200. And what it is, there's 4 separate scenes on it, and it's each one of the 4 apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, penning the Bible. So I really like this piece. And it's kind of unusual that all the decoration is done in shades of blue. So I was real pleased to get that. This one here is an exception to the rule. Everything I've showed you so far is completely hand-painted. This piece here, I don't know where Albrechtburg is, but...
It's in my...
Is it? Okay. Let's see. Pays to get out. But the front scene and the side scenes, which are monuments, are all photo transfers. It's not hand-painted. It's actually a photo transfer. It's the only one that I have that's been decorated that way, so it's an oddity for the factory. Another oddity is everything except for this piece and the one I'm going to show you is made in stoneware. This piece is in fine stoneware or pottery or whatever, or creamware. You have a lot of words for it, but it's not vitrified stoneware. So it's a real oddball piece. Also interesting is it's got impressed numbers. So I didn't know that Regensburg made these kind of bodies. I'm not saying that this is one of their bodies, but it breaks the rule. Same as this one here. It's a potter or a cream or a fine stoneware. So it's kind of unusual. Also, what I have at home that I forgot to photograph, Floyd Egoin also has one, is a print on a glazed plaque. Both of them are military men, very well decorated. It's done like a Matlock PUG, and that has the AS mark on it, so that's an oddity also. Here's a wine beaker, goblet, kind of unusual. Probably went to an original set with a big masterpiece at one time. We'd only seen one of these up until recently. The Whittams have this Stein, and luckily for them, I finally got one, and I've given them a break, not bothering them anymore. They said that they were going to put it in their will for me, so now they can live forever because I've got my own. But it's the only known character that Saeltzer made. I'm not saying it's the only one they did make, but it's the only one that's surfaced so far. As soon as you say an absolute in Stein collecting, somebody's going to prove you wrong. So it's the only one we found so far. And I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to see another different character Stein. They made a series of focals, one of which I have here. Mark Freeberg got that for me and brought it to the convention. And these are some others that I have. This is basically the same shape and size of the one I have up here. They're really nicely done. I have to assume that they were originally made with lids, though